Hola chicos, bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de qué está pasando en el mundo. Y en este episodio quiero presentar a una gran amiga que conocí en Barcelona, allá por el 2019, para hablar un poco de lo que está pasando en Estados Unidos. Y le voy a dar la palabra para que se presente ella. Eila, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, muy bien. Well, pues, I'm actually kind of
¿Preferís
angry
español o
today.
inglés?
Ambos.
Ambos.
Um, I can express myself better in English, but I can do Spanish
Yes, let's do it in
if we
English.
need. Okay. Thank you for having me, Juan. It's great to see you, and
It's a pleasure.
there's a lot to talk about.
There is. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, yes. My name is Ayla. I am a journalist living in San Francisco, California. I work for two publications as a journalist. One, I cover energy and climate policy. So I'm writing a lot about how the attempts to stop using energy sources that emit fossil fuels like oil and coal, and attempts to rely more on solar power and wind power, and the impact that the American president is having on those attempts. I also write a lot about data centers and artificial intelligence and the amount of resources and energy that those require. And then for another publication, I write about homelessness, specifically in San Francisco, and how that interacts with drug policy as well. So I write a lot about fentanyl and drugs.
Nice. Aylen, we have many subjects to discuss. We can talk about Trump. We can talk about what happened in the Super Bowl yesterday. We can talk
That's
about
what I'm
the
pissed about today.
yes, you're pissed for that.
Yeah, yeah. I woke up feeling very upset because I thought that Bad Bunny's performance was remarkable and really important, and very political. And I thought that it expressed Latin American joy in a really powerful way. And of course, Donald Trump tweeted a horrible tweet bashing it. So I think that that, if you want to talk about American politics, I mean, that's a great example of just the moment that we are in this country, with ICE, with racism, with foreign policy. You have this incredible performance on basically an American holiday, and Donald Trump is bashing it. I don't know if you saw the tweet that he tweeted, but it's
Yes, I
just
saw it.
really, really horrible. So I'm just feeling mad and sad is the best way to put it, really.
But do you think he would have another response according to what he's been doing?
I mean, I don't know what he's really going to do. I think that he just the irony, right, of l- living in a country that is stolen, living in a state like the Super Bowl happening in California, which is a Spanish word, like a stolen Mexican territory. All of our cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, all of these are Mexican words. And then having our president tweet about how, it made no sense and no one can understand a word he's saying. It's like, God forbid someone speaks Spanish on stolen Mexican land. Not to mention that Puerto Rico is an American state, which obviously was stolen as well. Talk about imperialism. If you want to talk about any of the other topics that you brought up, like Greenland, right? Like Venezuela, it's just American imperialism under Trump is at its height. He's just trying to steal land, and um, it's just colonialism at its finest, and it's really, really disheartening to see. So I think that he's just using this Bad Bunny performance as another example of his colonial policy and trying to assert white American dominance over any other culture, whether it be Greenland, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, anywhere.
The opinion you have about Bad Bunny performance and what Trump responds. Do you think your opinion it's a majority, or how do you say would be the opinion in general in America, in United States?
That's a good question. I think that my opinion is the majority. Absolutely. I don't think that Donald Trump is representative of most Americans. Obviously, he's popular enough to be voted into the presidency, but it's important to remember that both times that he's won the presidency, he didn't get the popular vote. So, like, eh, I don't know how much you know about this, but the way that someone is elected president in America is weird because we have this thing called the Electoral College. Are you familiar with the Electoral
I'm familiar, but
College?
you can explain it for the audience.
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but it makes it to where based on the population of every state gets a certain amount of electoral college votes. So it's a way of like giving people in rural parts of states more power, which I definitely agree with, because you have these situations where in a state like Oregon, the majority of the population is in Portland, is in a city, right? You have a state like California, the majority of the population is in cities, so Los Angeles and San Francisco. And that takes away the political power from people living in more rural parts of the state. And so the Electoral College seeks to kind of balance that out by giving each state a certain number of votes, which in theory seems like a good idea, but it just creates a situation where presidents are elected based on electoral college votes rather than the popular vote. So Donald Trump didn't win the majority vote either time that he was elected president. And so to answer your question, like, I don't think the majority of Americans agree with his policies. There is a big enough population that supports him, but they're kind of a niche population. So yeah, I mean, and like I'm speaking from opinion right now. Obviously, I'm a journalist, so in my job I try to remain unbiased um and understand everyone's viewpoint. I really try to do that. Even when it comes to Trump and his policies. I try to understand why people would support him, where they're coming from, what are their struggles that would lead them to support someone like that. And so, yeah, I try to remain as unbiased as possible, but it's just gotten to a point in this country where it's just fundamentally like so many of the things that he's doing, his policies are just fundamentally wrong, like from a basic human level of like kindness and goodness. So it's hard to like remain unbiased when we're talking about someone that is just like hurting people and like bashing people's identities and on so many different levels. I could go on and on, but I'll stop there.
So if you had to say why what would you say he won two times? What happened in the country that he won two times the presidency?
What happened?
Apart
What?
from this kind of what is happening in US that Trump,
Mm-hmm.
a guy like Trump, wins twice?
Yeah. It's
What
a
would you
hard
say?
question. I mean, I think there could be so many different answers to that question. one of the problems, I believe, is lack of good education. We don't have the best education system in this country. Education is really, really expensive. I went to college and went to graduate school. So I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And both of those things I paid for with loans, because I wanted to get educated. And I'm now in $160,000 of debt, college debt. And so I'm just saying this because it's an example that, like, if you want to be educated in America, you have to go into a lot of debt or you have to be rich. And I think that Trump is a really great example of lack of education, of being susceptible to false narratives. I also think that, there's just a lot of economic inequality in America in general. There's a lot of poverty, and I think Trump runs on a campaign to make people not only just richer, but like he really appeals to people because he's claims that he's going to strengthen the economy, and he claims that he's going to revitalize American business and manufacturing and industry in general. And so I think when people are just trying to put food on the table for their family, that, is a promising plea. So the question of whether or not he's actually strengthening the economy, that is a whole different topic. But I think it's those two things. I think it's like lack of education in this country, and it's also economic inequality that he's claiming that he can fix. And so, of course, people want to vote for someone that's saying, I, I'm going to protect your jobs and put more money in your bank account.
But this year, we have elections this year,
Mm-hmm.
midterm.
Mm-hmm.
So, what polls are saying? What do you think would be what can happen in the midterms?
I'm not sure. I really can't predict that. What I can say is in the United States, we have obviously the two prominent parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And then we have all these other parties, but they don't really get a lot of the Democrats and Republicans dominate so much that the other parties don't have a lot of power, which is frustrating because they could, I think that there are other parties outside of Democrats and Republicans that could do some real good in this country, but they just don't have any power. But what I've noticed, while I can't predict what will happen in the midterms, I've noticed that um politics are like a pendulum that swings back and forth and back and forth. So every time there is power taken by the Republican Party, like Trump getting elected and, there being a majority Republicans in the House and the Senate, it like something shifts in society where everyone kind of freaks out and goes, "Oh no, the Democrats have to take the power back." And so the pendulum swings to the Democrats. And then there's an upswing of Democratic power and Democratic candidates getting voted into House, Senate, and the presidency. I mean, even if you just look back at like American presidents over the last 20 or 30 years, it's pretty much always Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. So like I am sensing a democratic shift coming, hopefully. Well, I wouldn't even say hopefully because I don't know if they're much better, um but yeah, it's constantly back and forth. People get hope whether you're in Republican or Democratic Party, people get hope when like the tide starts to turn towards the party that you support, but it just goes back and forth, and it's also creates a weird situation where not a lot can get done. You know, we had Joe Biden as the president who did a lot for climate change. He passed a lot of climate laws, and then we get Donald Trump in office who essentially threw those all in the trash and like undid a lot of the work that Biden kind of gave us. And I'm just wondering if, like, you know, we're going to get another Democratic president or Democratic politicians that are going to try to rebuild those laws. And then we're going to get a Republican president that throws them all in the trash. And it's like, it's just hard to make progress. 4 years for a presidential term seems like a long time, but it's kind of not, honestly. So I don't know. It's a good question. And I think to sum it up, like, I'm not really sure, but I do sense a swing in the other direction.
Um, how the American society has changed in these years, and
Mm-hmm.
what are the main subjects that they're never treated in depth, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter if they're Republicans or Democrats. You know what I mean? What are
Mm-hmm.
the deep
Mm-hmm.
issues for American society in the recent years, or the 20, 30 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're
I mean,
they're
that's a big,
affecting seriously the country.
yeah, that's a big question. There's so many, right? There's so many topics. Because you brought up the homelessness one, I guess, like, you know, I mentioned economic inequality before. Um, Obviously, economic inequality is what's causing the amount of homelessness. It's one of the main factors that's causing, you know, widespread homelessness in America. Just everything, inflation and everything being so expensive. You know, America is considered on the global stage to be one of the richest countries in the world. Meanwhile, we have like one of the worst homelessness rates, people just living on the streets. You know, I can speak to that because in San Francisco, homelessness is pretty widespread. It's pretty high. It's not everywhere. You don't see homeless people everywhere. It's not as bad as some of the news outlets like Fox News are saying, but it is bad. I think, like, you know, for a city of less than 1 million people, we've got about 1,000 homeless people, and um, so many more at risk of homelessness, living in shelters and that sort of thing. And part of it is because of how much everything costs. I mean, like, it's insane. Like, it's normal for an American to say, like, I would never even dream of buying a house. And I say that myself. Like, you know, I can't even imagine like having enough money to own a home in California, unless I'm like a tech billionaire. uh, so that's a pretty depressing place to be. And another reason for the levels of homelessness that we have is fentanyl, is drugs. Like, the drug crisis and the homelessness crisis are really hand in hand. And we have a drug, fentanyl, being flooded into American drug markets that is 50 times more powerful than heroin. So, you know, a sand grain amount of fentanyl can kill you. And it's super, super addictive. Um, and so the country, mostly the West Coast, the entire country, but mostly the West Coast is really grappling with that as well. Of like, how do we get people off of fentanyl? How do we stop the amount of death happening? I mean, and it's not just people smoking fentanyl either. It's like being mixed with cocaine, and young people like myself will go out to a party or something and do a line of cocaine and die because there's fentanyl in it. So it's scary situation. Man, these are all such depressing topics. There are good things happening too.
Yeah, it is. They are. How does this start? The fentanyl.
Not entirely sure. Yeah. I mean, I know that fentanyl is a drug that is that is given in hospitals for pain management. And it's kind of like Oxycontin, it's a painkiller that is highly addictive, but it has to be super like regulated because of how dangerous it is. And I know that, I mean, I've read that it is coming into America just because it is kind of more bang for your buck. Like you get higher with less of it. And it's super addicting. So like for drug dealers, I guess it's like a great business decision to sell fentanyl because it's so addicting. But to be honest, I'm not really sure how it started other than people just being like, well, it's stronger than heroin and you don't need as much of it to get high. But I'm not exactly sure where it's coming from or anything beyond that. I've read things, but I don't want to say it here because I don't know if it's true. So, yeah. I mean, is fentanyl a thing in Uruguay? Is it a problem?
Honestly, I don't know, but I never heard about fentanyl here.
Really?
You say fentanyl, and I think in US, like
Yeah.
zombies in the US. Is that correct? Or it's exaggeration? They talking about
Is
zombies.
it
Like you go to Philadelphia or you go to the East Coast, and they're like a group of zombies in the surroundings.
a group of what?
Zombies.
Zombies. Unfortunately, yeah, it is true. When people are high on fentanyl, they lose control of their upper body. So they fold. So imagine like you're in yoga and you're stretching and you're touching your toes. It's like that. They're completely like folded in half. Um, so you'll go through certain parts of town. Again, I really want to emphasize this is not everywhere. San Francisco in particular, like I'm coming from that perspective, is a really, really beautiful city. There's a lot of really amazing things about it. But you do go in certain neighborhoods and where fentanyl is prevalent. And yeah, everyone is bent in half, like basically asleep. It's a weird it's it's weird. It's a lot different than seeing people like high on meth, right? If you see like a bunch of people tweaking out, they're like kind of running all over the place and like maybe blasting music and being crazy, but it's like almost feels more normal than like seeing people just completely bent over, like dead to the world, kind of.
The question is
Yeah,
Trump
sorry, you just froze for a
Trump
second.
create Trump creates MAGA, or MAGA select Trump? The question. So there's a bunch of people with this idea, and they select Donald Trump as the leader, or it's like a creation of Donald Trump. You know what I mean?
Hmm. He created the term and the philosophy like to an extent, but it is representative of a wider movement. So Trump not being president anymore won't get rid of MAGA. Like MAGA is a much bigger movement in the United States, and people often joke about like, oh, if Trump just died, like everything would be great. And it's like, well, no, that's not the case at all. Um, there's plenty of politicians that could take his shoes, and I think that he just was the catalyst to bring that philosophy that a lot of people held into this center stage, and he just gave it a lot of movement. But no, like it it exists without him 100%.
What happened with Charlie Kirk? Why? Who killed him?
I don't know. I don't know who killed him. Um, all I know is that it's a disgrace, in my opinion, that our president supported him. He said a lot of really, really horrible things about women, about immigrants, about people of color. Was he a good public speaker? Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was a talented debater, but like he said horrible, horrible things. And like, do I do I agree with violence in any way? No. Do I think that he should have been murdered? No. But I also think that he was a huge proponent of guns and the National Rifle Association. So much so that, we live in a country where school shootings are super common. Children are getting murdered all the time. And he was a staunch advocate of guns. So I think it's kind of sick irony that, he was killed by something that he was such a supporter of.
It
I
is.
don't know who killed him, though.
It's quite an irony.
It's quite what?
It's quite an irony.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
It is.
Crazy.
Okay. One last question before going to the good part, the good news. Okay.
Sure,
One last question
sure.
to talk
Okay,
about something pretty, something good,
okay. Yeah.
and the same files.
Oh.
It's, I mean, what do you think about that? What's that saying to American society, high class? But it's not Americans. They are also in European people are more complicated. And what it tell you about society, about high class? What this matter? What do you think about this matter in that terms?
Mhm. I think it's just a great example of how, not always, but most of the time, wealthy people can get away with anything. I mean, having money in America means that you can get away with pretty much anything, right? And like the way that we in American society obsess over money and power and influence and celebrities and Hollywood, a lot of these people with money, power, influence, whatever, are disgusting people getting away with disgusting things. And I have been struggling to follow the Epstein files because emotionally it's just really hard to see all of this information come out and know that our justice system, like, I don't have a lot of faith in our justice system to do anything about it. I fear that these people will continue to just get away with this type of behavior. And a great example of that is, I don't know if you followed at all what was happening with P. Diddy and everything that came to light with P. Diddy and like him abusing and sexually, like emotionally abusing and sexually abusing women. Um, and he's not like he got off. Like he's not even being held
It's free
accountable
now.
for any of his sexual crimes. Yeah, which is crazy to me. So I'm like, yeah, the Epstein files are horrible, but I look at them and I'm like, so is anything even going to happen? What are we going to do with this information? Like, are any of these people going to be prosecuted?
No.
I don't know. I'm curious what you
Impu-
think.
impunity.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Talking about ice. Um, why everything is happening in in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and not other states? And why is always Democrat states? And what can happen in the future if some states decided to confront the ICE forces?
Mm. I don't know why it's been happening in Minnesota of all places. That's a question that I've been asking myself. Why though? Why it happens in Democratic states? That's just because Democratic states typically have more immigrant-friendly policies, and are seen as safer states for immigrants to go to. Um, and so, of course, like, the federal administration is going to crack down on immigration a lot harder in Democratic states than Republican states because Republican states are already a bit more harsh to immigrants. Um, so I maybe that's why it's happening in Minnesota, but I'm not really sure. Normally, these types of federal agent crackdowns, whether it be ICE or like police being really harsh on like protesting and that sort of thing, happens in like Oregon, in California, more West Coast, New York as well. But yeah, I don't know why in Minnesota in particular, but it is. I mean, they have a Democratic governor, Tim Walz, so that could be why. But I need to do more reading on that particular question.
No, and I read that there could be like things can get worse if these states decided to confront against these immigration forces. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Trump is a president that uses a lot of force, um, and so yeah, if people continue to stand up to ICE, he's not going to be nice. He's not going to back down. He's going to. I mean, it's kind of the same that we saw during the pandemic in 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement was really prominent, and there was a lot of and there was protesting because of the murder of George Floyd by
For
police.
sure, yeah.
Um, Yeah, the way that Trump reacted to all of that protesting was sending federal agents into the cities where the protests were the strongest and kidnapping people. There was a lot of pepper spray. I was there. I felt it. Um, a lot of pepper spray, a lot of uh aggressive like physical force, and so I fear that that is just it's happening again just with ICE.
Okay, no more bad questions.
No, I appreciate it. It's good to talk about these things.
No, it's good to talk about. It's a little bit depressing, like you said. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's happening in what happened that we can smile? What is happening? Like we all hear bad stuff about North America. What is happening that you can feel proud about it?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, being an American is interesting. There's a lot of really fucked up stuff happening all the time. But something that brings me a lot of joy is music. Like, we have such an insane we just have insane culture in the United States. Like the music, not only the music, but like the art, the film, the cultural expression that comes out of this country just never ceases to amaze me. And like, even full circle going back to the Bad Bunny performance, like that was joyful. That was beautiful. That was a true expression of like joy and celebration, and it was sexy, and like I'm like super super happy to live somewhere where like that level of creative freedom can be expressed. And so yeah, that brings me a lot of joy. I love music. I go to a lot of concerts. I think like the music scene in the US in general is just like incredible. Um and I'm just grateful to live in like a country of immigrants. There's so much diversity in this country. It's just yeah, like the food, the everything. It's never fails to keep me entertained, that's for sure. So, yeah.
But something that occurred in the recent times, like some discovery, some new stuff,
That's
some
good.
new movement. What's happening there? That you can, apart from what
Well,
you told me
every
about
time
music, about
yeah,
or
every
some
time
people to
there
follow,
what was that? Some people to follow?
some people to follow. I, I'm not in terms of social media to follow the what is doing. Some artist or
Yeah.
scientist
Um,
in any topic.
it's a good question. Well, I mean, a couple people, like going back to the Super Bowl performance, just because that's on my mind. Last year, Kendrick Lamar's performance was insane. It was so powerful, and I think like he has just done a lot of really amazing things in this country. He's an incredible writer. He's a poet. He like received the Nobel, or what did he receive? He received the Pulitzer Prize, which is the highest award for writing. And so I think it's really important to remember, like, he's not just a musician and like a rapper. He's a prolific writer, and he writes about really important things. So I'm always watching what he's doing. I think too, like anytime there's a movement of negativity, so like using like there's a lot of horrible things happening with trans rights and gay, like LGBTQ rights in this country right now. But every time there's a movement that's oppressing a group of people, there is also a resistance movement that is really beautiful. So there's a really powerful trans community in the United States right now, and LGBTQ community that just like finds like does a amazing time like resisting all of the oppressive forces. I live in San Francisco, and San Francisco is like a beautifully gay city. Like there's just a lot
I
of
want to go.
expression of LGBTQ joy. You should visit. It's epic.
I should visit San
I like
Francisco.
love walking down the street and seeing like a naked man.
Interesting.
Yeah, you should.
Thank you very much.
I know that's kind of an extreme example.
No, thank you
Thank you.
for all your. It was a pleasure for your time. It's been 48
Same.
minutes.
Same for me.